contributor and co-host of the American Enterprise Institute. New podcast, What the Hell is Going On? Marc, good evening to you. You've been listening to the general
evening,
there.
Sandra.
Very serious stuff.
Yes.
Obviously, you heard the warning from Nancy Pelosi. We have to de-escalate the situation. She acknowledged the president does not want war here. Where does this go next, Marc?
Well, I think the president is de-escalating it. If you look at what he said that it could have been a mistake. It could have been somebody who was not coming from the top. And so he's taking a very, very measured approach to this. But what I'm really appalled by, quite frankly, Sandra, is all the people in Washington who are spending so much time trying to blame Donald Trump for this escalation of tensions. You had Joe Biden go out today and say that this is a completely self-inflicted wound. Yeah. I mean, Donald Trump didn't put a mine on a Japanese oil tanker. Donald Trump didn't shoot down a U.S. drone. Iran did those things. And the fact is, the reason why Donald Trump has had to impose these sanctions is because of the Obama administration's nuclear deal, which what happened was when Donald Trump came into office, Iran was on the march across the Middle East, in Syria, in Lebanon, in Yemen, across the whole region. And it was fueled by the pallets of cash and billions of dollars in sanctions relief that came from that nuclear deal. The promise of the nuclear deal was it's going to improve Iran's behavior. Instead, it had the opposite effect. So what Donald Trump did is he canceled the nuclear deal and he imposed massive sanctions on the Iranian regime. Yeah. We've taken away $10 billion of their assets, and they no longer have money to fund Hamas and Hezbollah and all these terrorist groups. And so they're lashing out because they're frustrated that the Trump strategy is working.
I spoke to a member of the president's team this morning, Peter Navarro, who suggested that those sanctions, as far as they're concerned, have worked beautifully on pressuring Iran.
Yes.
As far as that criticism from the former Vice President Joe Biden, 2020 contender, here is him in his own words. President Trump's Iran strategy is a self-inflicted disaster, as you said, Marc. By walking away from diplomacy, Trump has made military conflict more likely. Another war in the Middle East is the last thing we need. So that has been some of the reaction, Marc.
Yeah, so look in the mirror, Joe. You're the one who sent, your administration is the one that sent pallets of unmarked bills to Tehran. You're the administration that lifted sanctions on the Iranian regime that has allowed them to fund Hamas, fund Hezbollah, fund all these terrorist groups, and fund their imperial expansion across the Middle East. They have never been more irresponsible than they had been in the last 2 years until Trump came in and cut off their funding. And the other thing that Trump has done, which is responsible, is that he has drawn a very clear red line. It's very interesting, you know, like Jack noted that they shot it. If they did in fact choose this target, it was an unmanned drone. The reason is the red line that Secretary Pompeo said was if one single American is killed by either Iran or Iranian proxy, there's going to be a military response. And so you notice they didn't blow up a U.S. tanker. They tried to blow up a Japanese tanker. They didn't shut down a manned plane. They shot down an unmanned plane. They are boxed in. They're boxed in financially by the sanctions, and they're boxed in militarily by the red line that Trump has drawn.
What about some of our European allies that are still doing business with Iran? Should there be more pressure put on them?
Actually, the European businesses have been leaving Iran, and they've been cut. And these sanctions have been so effective, Sandra. $10 billion since November in Iranian revenues have been cut. We have virtually brought their oil exports down to zero. Bloomberg tracks the tankers leaving Iranian ports, and there have been almost none. So, and that means they don't have money to fund Hezbollah. They don't have money to fund Hamas. They've had to cut the budget of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, the Iranian military. They are hurting, and they're unable to carry out the
Final question to you, Marc, Marc, tonight on what the options are that the administration has and how they can proceed with or without Congress. The New York Times headline tear there: could Trump use 9/11 war law to bypass Congress and attack Iran? We know that this article, by the way, it explores, it questions whether or not the administration has been laying the groundwork to do just that by tying al-Qaeda to Iran. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi walked out of that meeting making it very clear that their message was that the president can't move forward without congressional approval. What are the options the president has? Final thoughts.
Well, first of all, he's the commander-in-chief, and under Article 2, he has the authority to use the United States military to strike Iran if they strike us. He doesn't need to go to Congress to get authorization for that. Every president before him, from Bill Clinton to Ronald Reagan, has used American force to respond to provocations by terrorist regimes. So he doesn't need congressional authorization to strike Iran in a limited strike. And people need to understand there's a difference between a military strike and going to war. Lots of presidents have launched military strikes. Bill Clinton launched military strikes. Ronald Reagan launched military strikes on Libya, and it didn't lead to a wider war. Sometimes a military strike, when it's targeted and limited, is actually designed to increase deterrence and prevent a broader war. The danger is if we don't respond, and if we if an American is killed and we don't respond, then that increases Iranian aggression across the world.
All right, we'll see where it all goes, and obviously we're all on high alert to see what the next steps are on the part of the administration and his team. Marc Thiessen, great to see you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on.
A twist. No.